start. Thank you, welcome, and good evening. And I'm actually very excited and been imagining this moment for many, many years. I don't know how many, maybe 9. Uh, Thinking about the moments each time we actually take UVA students to Shanghai to visit Atelier Deshaus, Liu Yichun would give us a full lecture. I was just sitting there and said that, wow, this lecture should really be happening in this room. And today I'm really excited that it just finally is happening in this room and to the whole school. Before I introduce him, I really would like to say a big thank you to the Whedon Foundation and to Luke Pollock and Tom Romer, who run the Whedon Foundation. And the Whedon Foundation has supported our China program, our China-related research and publication, and supporter of this lecture series. So without them, none of this is possible. So really would like to thank them. And Luke is the chair of the Whedon Foundation, but more importantly, he's the grandson of William Stone Whedon, who was one of the most celebrated professors in the University of Virginia. Professor Whedon was a university professor, and he was a pioneer in teaching East Asian architecture and art at UVA. And before him, there was hardly anything on Asian art and Asian architecture. So he started that. He studied mathematics and philosophy with Alfred North Whitehead at Harvard, and he served in the Navy during the Second World War. And with his mathematical skills, he actually decoded the enemy communication, which was quite an achievement there. He served. In addition to art and architecture, he was really interested in the connection between architecture and philosophy, and was really interested in the similarities between Platonism and Buddhism. And I find that really fascinating. For his excellence in teaching and research, he was given the Thomas Jefferson Award in 1976, the university's highest honor. Today, with this lecture, I hope we can celebrate and honor that legacy of Professor Whedon. I think Liu Yichun embodies that spirit of to explore the connection between architecture and philosophy. I've always felt that visiting his projects, and his projects, after you visit them, to me is quite unforgettable. And yesterday I had a long conversation with Yichun, but also Michael Hayes, and we were just coming to, we got quite excited about about his work, and talked about quite a few concepts. And I thought that I got a little bit closer to why his work is so special. We talked about the concept of Structurescape, which is hopefully he's going to explain a lot more. The idea that between Japanese, Chinese, and English, 3 languages and cultures that he's immersing himself in for all kinds of reasons, and between the 3 languages, the idea of structure means different things. So there are actually kind of gaps in between these 3 languages that have become productive. This to me is a really interesting phenomenon, and it really indicates and illustrates the productivity of linguistic and cultural divergence. And it's not a bad thing. It's really a productive space that we can use. Liu Yichun is founder and principal architect of Atelier Deshaus. He's also a guest professor at Tongji University. He was invited to participate in a variety of major international architecture and art exhibitions in more than 15 countries and regions, such as Reuse, Renew, and Recycle in MoMA in 2022. He was in a solo exhibition at the RIBA Practice Space in London, another solo exhibition at the ADA's Architecture Forum in Berlin. His work won many architectural prizes and awards. His most representative project, the Loan Museum in Shanghai's West Bund, won Architecture Review's Award for Emerging Architecture, the Honor Award Best in Show for Architecture 2019 from the AIA China chapter, and the Gold Prize given by ArcAsia in the Awards for Architecture in 2020. ArcAsia is the principal professional body in Asia, including many Asian countries. And the in 2021, Modern Art Museum in Shanghai is going to show you, hopefully, that project. Won the RIBA International Award for Excellence. The office is recognized as one of the 10 design vanguards in 2011 by Architecture Record. He was China's most influential designer, according to Forbes, in 2015. And he received Architecture China Award for Practice in 2023. Please join me to welcome Mr. Liu Yichuan to give us a lecture. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming, and thanks Qiao for introducing me and also for the invitation here. And it's my pleasure to be here to share with you some of our recent works and thoughts. The presentation title is Finding Coincidences, which may not be accurate because when I finished the PowerPoint, I suddenly felt that sometimes it's not kind of accidents, but towards an not kind of a coincidence, but towards an accidentism. Of course, first I got to Chinese title 巧合. Basically, 巧合translating in English is coincidence, but from the context of Chinese, the original meaning of 巧合 is skillful fitting, which is composed of the word 巧. The word 巧 skill and 和 fit. 巧 is also composed of craft plus detail, and 和 is composed of roof plus territorial. All the original meaning is related to construction. In English, maybe more close to its meaning in early 17th century, which means occupation in the same space. Anyway, let's begin with the sunshade. Maybe it's more easy to understand what I thought. This is the sunshade I came across a few years ago, built by the staffs on an archaeological site in Zhengding, in North China. We can see its structure. A tree trunk for support, the trees above and rocks on the ground are used to put up such a tent. It sensitively captures the features of the place, took advantage of the site conditions, the topography, to cover up the working area, and thus became a part of the place very naturally. This is a bridge making of wood and stone that I found 15 years ago in a small town in Zhejiang, southern China. Also, the bridge is almost in ruins. We can still see that this was an elegant design. There are delicate stone stairs and cantilevered bearing platform on both sides. The 3 wooden beams are mostly in their natural form, but the joints with the stone beams and panels are very distinct. The stone beams have drains, and the wooden beams can exactly fit in between the gap. The stone parts protect the wooden parts from the rain, and they each perform with their loading feature as wood and stone. Surely we will feel the wisdom of the craftsman who built it. We may say it's an architectural coincidence after carefully thinking. All these construction intentions that can be read or sensed makes this bridge so poetic and full of pleasant. Actually, this bridge shows us the original meaning of the wood structure, which refers to the organizational relationship between the various parts of the bridge. That means the idea of network of things was included in the original concept of structure. And in the late social division of labor and the development of disciplines, this kind of network of things meaning is in structure was stripped away or severed. In the concept of mechanics, that is when we consider the structure as an engineering thing, we cannot appreciate the durability of stone or the fragility but warmth of wood. But when we can understand the structure as a network of things, these perceptions will be still there. This one is different from the previous constructions by staff or craftsmen. This is a Hello Pavilion of Fanta Garden just in Shanghai, Songjiang district, designed by Professor Feng Jizhong, who is from Tongji University and designed in around 1985. The name of the pavilion already indicates the intention of poetic creation in ancient Chinese literature, namely Lou Shiming, which means epigraph on my humble room, written by Liu Yuxi in Tang Dynasty. And the roof of the pavilion follows the form of xieshan roof. Maybe in English we call it saddle roof. I don't know, in Chinese traditional architecture. But apparently the pavilion is built differently from the systematically xieshan roof. Deciding on a certain style of roof is surely an intentional cultural choice, because it is in a park with the existing tower from Song Dynasty, and the architects want to respond to the Song Dynasty legacy with such a kind of building. It's both related and also keep a distance in time. It combines the local bamboo lashing techniques with contemporary roof structures and present a free structural form. It could not have been carefully calculated, but managed to perfectly support the roof, cover the space, and adapt to the intentional height difference and horizontal twist. But every pillar just fits the cross point of the square paving. The architect gave up the modern construction system and left the construction of the structure to the craftsman, but in an interactive way influenced the craftsman's working. In general, this modern design made an Asian architectural form more primitive. These 3 architectures, from a somehow casual design to a formal one, to the formal, they share certain features from relatively informal to formal structure, which results from the sensitivity towards the site, the materials, the climate, and even cultural conditions. So it's rational, and finally it completes a kind of structurescape. A structure created in this way is not just a specific structure, but also a poetic composition or decomposition of the building system. They are all tectonics and originated from the region. But after maturity, it was linked to the region countries, such as a Chinese timber architecture or anything else. But modern technology has deeply changed the regionality of building system. And the important thing may not be the change itself, but the new opportunities in the change, the possibility of new poetic construction or something else. The sunshade, it looks like a casual decision, but reaches a sensitive balance and plain poetry. It does not just refer to a structural balance, but also to the synergy between that contemporary black shading clothes and the age-old archaeological sites it covers. I like this kind of state, but normal projects are always much more complex than this. And the design is always requiring an accuracy with the drawings. So we would also like to discuss how a carefully calculated structure can still achieve a sense of freedom and sensitivity. It's something wrong said. This is the Law Museum Westbourne. We began to work on since the end of 2011. The site used to be a wharf and transporting coals. Most of these industrial wharfs have moved out to Shanghai since Expo 2010. This photo was just taken in 2008. Now it's become a public space of the city. When we started this project, a two-story underground car parking surrounding of the coal uploading bridge was already built 2 years ago. However, this coal hopper uploading bridge was preserved. It's around 100 meters long and 8 meters wide. This is the plan and the section of the formal design for the existing basement. On the right is how it would have looks like, and it was planned to be a tourist service center. And the part above the ground was not built. We can see the underground structure plan is a standard 8.4 times 8.4 meters column grid. It was designed for the economy of car parking. Since most regions in China require the design to be strictly earthquake proofed, normally whatever the function is above ground, the underground structure would simply extend upwards. The columns would be wrapped in the division walls or exposed in the space with no direct relation to the specific functions and just supporting the floor plates of the building to provide unable space. On the opposite, here we see this hopper for coal loading. Even though that lost its function of transporting coals, we can still read from its structures to see the body of the trains and how the coal was transporting there. It shows a simple but strong will is making. The meaning of the structure is certainly suspended as the function is removed. This somehow represents the destiny of an architecture in the future. If a city is willing to preserve these structures without a function, it means that architecture has to prove a value beyond its use, but it starts exactly from functional purpose. This should be telling us only if the structure of the architecture can also carry a purpose, such as a purpose for use, it can retain more lasting historical values. We had to design an art museum of such a site. traditional art museums originate from place and villas, palace and villas, and this layout to going from room to room has always been a standard pattern for museums. I came to realize that paintings and artworks are attached to the walls, but not the rooms. It is possible to have a more flexible layout, so we came up with a space with independent walls where people can roam around to see the exhibitions. These independent walls are built upon the standard 8 times 8 meters column grid of the existing basement of economy car parking. Thus, an art museum has adapted its function to its structure, though arranging the walls, and has adapted to the existing column grid system too. Sure enough, the special thing is it is not just a simple and vertical wall, but a wall structure that has combined this covering roof. In fact, the walls, and each made of two pieces of walls, they climb the old structure, growing upwards and expand into individual, what we call vault umbrella structures. They group with one another till they cover all the exhibition space. The void in between the walls, as the pink part shows it, for mechanical equipment. Thus, as we figure out the adaptation of structure and function, we also deal with the mechanical system, and together they solve the spatial issue. The spatial issue also includes the gaps to allow skylight, as we make each vault umbrella unit independent as a complete structure and detached from one another. This is how a functional concern also works out for the atmosphere. Of course, material is also relevant as cast finish concrete. In this model, we can see the relationship between the new and the old structure. The new walls are based on the original column grids, but form a rather free exhibition space. Sure, there are many ways to combine the walls. Finally, we decide on a layout with diverse spaces that are symmetrical, rotational, or diagonal. The fluidity of the space is important, and it's the simplicity of the very structure resulting from various intentions that build up an analogy with the existing core hopper on the site. When we describe the notion of covering as tree or umbrella, we are actually mentioning human body. This is a metaphor based on the perception of our body. For from its point of view, this is not much difference between Chinese traditional timber architecture or this concrete architecture. In the summer, when I was walking in this temple from Jin Dynasty, I immediately thought of the just finished Long Museum. A photographer, Walt Mayer from Swiss, asked me for keywords for this space during his photo shooting. I did not thinking for a second. I said ruins. He demanded to turn off all the artificial lighting and took this photo. The new structure of the museum, along with the existing co-hopper uploading bridge, forms the public space leading from the city to the riverfront. On the facade of the museum, we can clearly see the structural and spatial composition of the structure of the architecture. The interior space is also made by the concrete structure unit, vault umbrella structural. In this space, numerous exhibitions took place here. Every exhibition seems to be tailored. They all reacted to the space, each in their own way, and so each one of them is unique. Even though the space is so strong and remains the same, people still remembered almost all the exhibitions in this space. These photos shows the activity of people inside and outside the building. It has become one of the most important and cultural spaces of Shanghai. This is the next project, Taizhou Contemporary Art Museum. The design started in 2015, soon after the completion of the Long Museum. Taizhou is a small city in the south, about 3 hours from Shanghai by a high-speed train. It sits in a former grain depot area, which had been transformed into a commercial area. The developer keeps a piece of the land for a small art museum, and to the south of the museum is a small plaza, and it is facing a mountain to the east. The green color shows. In an art museum not that big, we don't want to take too many stairs to reach the next level. We designed a staggered space for exhibition so that we can go up only half a level to reach the next exhibition hall, and we cover the space on each level with parallel vaults. These are two model photos. The left one shows what's unusual about this structure. Normally, such a strongly directions vault structure would be supported on both ends, but in here, the end of the beam is missing. We can see on the right, actually, the end beam is just upturned. The upturning structural beam made the vault structure seem like it is floating in the air. The mountain at far is involved into the building. On some other facade, the floating vaults are placed upon semi-transparent glasses. On the inside, this seemed to be a liberation of structural force. Following that is an acceptance of the exterior environment with a certain attractiveness, but on the outside it still looks very solid. The facade facing the plaza also applied the walls with a similar wave form. It seems like the interior is unfolded to the outside due to constant construction errors and incontinuous building process. The facade of the building presents an unexpected texture. We managed to persuade the client to retain all the error marks on the facade before he tried to cover them up. This is beyond what design can do. Something as an unsatisfying construction performance may also become a figure of beauty. The raw interior, this is the raw interior space, or we may call it nude space, or before it became an art museum, we document this naked space like the ruins. Finally, the white walls made it an art museum atmosphere. Its interior space in the most impressive when it is dim. The museum keeps the door open even when there is no exhibition. The people would go inside, look around, and take photos. Sometimes I feel like it's like a church or a public space with quite much surprise. When there is no exhibition, the space here seems to return to a neutralized condition, like a ruin, but still with hidden vitality. This is Shanghai Modern Art Museum at eastbound Shanghai. We also started to work on it in 2015. It was built in just 1 year's time. It is also along the Huangpu River. It is an art museum and an additional walkway. It was also a coal wall, almost demolished completely under our suggestions. The client agreed to retain this original ordinary industrial structure. By the time the roof and part of the walls has been removed already, it had to be pulled down because the existing structure could not meet the functional need for the new building. And the client never thought that the enclosed hoppers could become an exhibition space. We applied a huge roof truss on the top and hang the new structure below, which formed the cantilevered additional surrounding space. Thus, we can prevent the destruction of the cantilevered structure. It had been inserted into the existing structure. When we looked at its new structure attached upon the existing old structure during the construction, it seems like a fishnet leggings, or also the artwork wrapped trees by Christophe and Jean Claude. The existing structure is in red, and surrounding by the suspended structures are increased exhibition space. The building has a brand new appearance. Apart from the steel stairway on the left, we can barely see the trace of the old building. This suspended structure also adds exterior open space to the building. The platforms and corridors build up a sense of publicity and landscape, which the former enclosed industrial buildings did not have. It is the Shanghai Tower, the tallest building in China. Whether the museum is open or not, people are able to walk through the building from one side to another. And when lights are on, we can see the old structure in the building. The V-shaped pool roads in front of us is even thinner than the window frames. A brand new architecture has an old coal bunker at its core. The entrance hall of the building is covered with the existing coal hoppers. The contrast between the inside and outside is also unique to this architecture. Exhibition can be held in between and even inside the coal hoppers. To the north of the art museum are cafes and art shops transformed from the original coal channels. It is also a public park. These are the old coal channels. And we attached a new and light steel structure onto the old frame structure, both stressing the existence of the old and forming a new entity. One thing to stress upon, normally it is the easy way to add secondary beams vertical to the existing beams on the parallel frames. But such a structure would be too reasonable and lose its sense of time. So we think it through and apply a string beam structure for the steel beams parallel to the existing frame. It seems like the structure is somehow floating in the air, but seeks to stress and distinguish the existing frame beams. The glass boxes suspended from the new steel string beams are flexible retail spaces. The new structure seems to be just suspended there. The existing structure seems just like it right here as natural. On the rooftop is an elevated walkway along the Huangpu River. A newly built architecture seems like it has been there for a long time. It is not only a part of an art museum, but rather a part of the city, the riverfront. This is our old office. Yeah. Following the completion of the Long Museum, we also moved to our space to the westbound. We became closely related to the urban regeneration of this area. This space used to be by the repairing zone of the Shanghai aircraft manufacturing factory. A main warehouse is transformed into the Westbound Art Center. Surrounding it, some temporary artists and architecture studios are also built, and some art galleries too. Our office is among them. The site of our office in the parking space in the former aircraft factory. We wanted to reduce the cost by using the existing concrete ground of the parking lot as the building foundation. The two trees at the front would be enclosed in the courtyard. Building directly upon the parking lot, a concrete ground, instead of building a new foundation, leads to the decision of applying a brick wall structure on the ground level, so as to distribute the load transmission. And so on the ground floor is mainly small functional space. On the second floor is a large space with a light steel structure, our main work of space. This is a workspace on the second floor. One special thing, we put the main structure column at the middle of the window, so that the columns and window frames are merged together, and the steel columns can get rid of the cold bridge effect with the heating isolating window frames, so that the walls of the upper floor don't have to be too thick. The structure is also clearly presented in the space on the upper floor. The supporting roof truss is an important element for the spatial atmosphere. It is also related to the industrial history of this space, but the structure is not completely exposed. A section of the ceiling makes it bright and comfortable. The elevations of the buildings honestly reflect the relating structural forms. The skylight of the ground level meeting room and office let the trees become a part of the shelter of the space. The sunken part of the rooftop terrace guides the rainwater to where the trees are. Unfortunately, in June of this year, the studio, along with the other studios and galleries on the site, was completely demolished for the land redevelopment, and the site was almost restored to its original state, as if nothing had happened. The photo above is in the middle is from the time it was under construction in July 2015. Just in this space, I met Qiao and students from here first in 2016, I think. And the bottom of in the middle of the photo is a mass from the demolition in June this year, a bit like Frank Gehry's style. This is a tea house in the same art village, just near our office. Also in this art village, also demolished this June. It is located in. It was located in a 110 square meter country yard courtyard with a tall tree. The yard is tiny, especially compared to this tree. The tea house close to sit on the tree side so as to make space for the yard. It makes the tree seems not too big in the small yard. Another benefit is that the tea house would appear to be really small. The tea house uses really thin steel structures with all columns and beams are at about only 6 centimeters wide. Compared to the tree trunk of 90 centimeters wide, the columns and beams of this wide barely count anymore. Usually in our architecture of wooden structure, the size of the beams and columns are the same size of the tree trunks. In order to reduce the footprint of the tea house as much as possible, we also turn the interior seats into part of the architectural structure and elevations. The red and the yellow column are lateral resisting structures. The blue ones and set as vertical load transition columns from the cantilever parts. This is a structural system with certain dynamic load transition. We can see on the left the envelope structure of the building is cantilevered layer after layer. Also, because the tea house in reduce at its lower part, in reverse, we would hope to rather expand the upper part so that it would not feel too packed on the inside. Our demand for space on our upper part is much larger than that on our lower part. As for the yard, the house should take up as little space as possible. So on the envelope of the building, we can see the seat height at 45 centimeters and a human standing height at 1.8 meters and the roof height at 2.5 meters. Architecture is it's a metaphor of human bodies, human scale. Meanwhile, architecture of furniture, it is also blurred due to the scale of the structural elements. Structure is both of architecture and of furniture. In this way, a direct connection is created between our body and architectural structure. The architectural body shows the intentions of support and function. They became components with multiple meanings. Because of the close distance and the dim light enclosed by the backyard, the interior actually feels like it is expanded through the glass all the way to the wall. This is the top view. Seems like the architecture covered almost as much as the yard is left with. But on the ground, the yard does not feel smaller than when there was no architecture. It actually feels bigger since the space is further layered. This is a pavilion designed for the 1+1 exhibition. It's part of the Shanghai Urban Art Season of 2015, which is held every other year. An architect and an artist to work together to create a spatial installation. With the spatial installation, I try to present different understandings towards Chinese hierarchy from the perspective of an artist and an architect. The steel artificial rocking is very famous artist Zhan Wang's artwork, is actually trying to produce Chinese Taihu stone, also called as artificial mountain, artificial stone with stainless steel, as an aesthetic object to review the enhance of nature in the times of metropolitans. I sliced the Rockies of Zhan Wang's and placed them beneath the same roof, as if so as to create a spatial experience similar to that in an artificial mountain in Chinese traditional gardens. The artificial mountains in the gardens are both mimic to natural mountains and a space where people can have an interesting experience of wandering inside. These sliced rockies support a very thin steel plate as the roof. They are both spatial rhetoric components and seemingly the components for structural support. The actual architectural structure is a 10 millimeter thick steel plate supported by 6 A-shaped thin steel columns. When the locations and directions of the support are changed, this is a different spatial outcome, and the load-carrying situation of the roof is reflected on wondrous deformation and bending moment nephrograms. Based on the eventual space, we have the nephogram and the structural engineer decides the distribution of the upturning ribs. The ribs are also used as planting poles on the roof. If there had not been a concept of the Rocky, this might be a pure engineering spatial construction. The scape of the Rocky adds cultural significance to the space. Sometimes we cannot tell which one is prior to the other. I mean, sometimes we want to detach meaning from something, and sometimes we bring in preconceived meaning, a choice of the building intentions, as much architecture is, after all, an expression of meaning. This is the Riverside Passage, designed in 2018. It is also along the Huangpu River in Shanghai. The site used to be a gas factory wharf, also for coal transporting. There was a 90-meter long and 4-meter high concrete wall. The wall was built to prevent the coal from falling into the river. Some trees grow up from within the gap between the wharf and the flood control wall. It gives a sense of wildness there. We named this place 边缘 in Chinese. It also means a place little bit far away or a French walkway. It got the name of Riverside Passage from a conversation I had there with Professor Yehuda Safran. He asked me how we should define the space with a certain type. It is a balcony, or it's a passage, or a pavilion. Riverside Passage is a conclusion when we came up with right then. But now, if you ask me, I might want to call it edge of garden. There were actually 2 walls on the wharf. One of them has been broken down and left in the gap. As the wharf was abandoned later, the place turned into ruins left behind by the city. We hope to transform the place into a new urban space with its current atmosphere through a modest design. We applied a single pitched roof onto the wall and clearly defined the space on both sides. On one side is a lower corridor relating to a small-scale garden space in the gap. The other is a lifting platform reacting to the large-scale riverscape. During the discussion of the structural rationality of the eave dips, we realized that the wall across the single pitched steel roof has a delicate structural force on the roof. Its impact on wind control makes this wall not just for spatial enclosure. The flood control wall. The notion of the flood control wall and the pitched roof as one structure might only be perceived on the intellectual level, but I believe that the subconsciousness of the body can sense more internal relevance. The new roof changed the role of the wall and the space as well, but the features and atmosphere of the original place are still there. This is a pavilion, a balcony, and a passage, a place where one can feel free to stay or passing by. This is a place of a landscape. It carries with it the trace of urban infrastructures in a metropolis. You will find a duration of time here. The wharf ground is polished to be a skating rink. The place becomes a vivid public space for daily activities. The garden, this is the garden in the gap. The fragments of ruins are preserved here. In fact, it is hard to keep it in such a state of wildness in Shanghai, so as to prove its once remote being in the city. The government always wanted to be modern and beautiful everywhere. A scene like this is usually described as bleak. Fortunately, biologists find a kind of bug, a kind of moose here, and had disappeared in other places along the Huangpu River, and the beauty of the wildness gets to survive finally because of the ecological reason. The ruins of the architecture replace the artificial mountains in traditional Chinese gardens. The thin roof plate of steel turns an industrial wall into a garden wall. The bottom photo shows the length of the passage in Canglangting garden in Suzhou. The tides of Huangpu River keeps washing the ruins that were once architecture. They became stones of garden and became real stones. The Taihu stone of Suzhou is also a result of being washed by the lake water. This is a pavilion that has just been completed recently in Kunming, Yunnan, China. It is located on the lake shore of Kunming's famous lake Dianchi, which was polluted for a long time, and the local government built a Laoyuhe wetland park and planted a lot of trees to filter the treated sewage discharged into Dianchi Lake again. The name Laoyuhe means a river where you can catch fish, and there are a lot of small fish in the wetland, and many people will come here to catch fish. Last year, the Kunming government held an art festival here, and we, as participant architects, were arranged by the curator to design a pavilion that would serve as an entrance to the festival and also an entrance to the Laoyuhe wetland park. Building a pavilion by the woods at the edge of the lake reminds me that there are many landscape paintings in China, and there is always only one small pavilion standing between the mountain and rivers, such as this painting by Ni Zan in the early Ming dynasty, called Qiao Jia Shu Tu. That means a pavilion in the fall with beautiful trees. In the vast landscape, the pavilion is a small point, but it is given an important place in the painting name. This is another landscaping painting called Songling Tingstu, which means a pine forest pavilion. So this should be the forest pavilion, the Meta Sequoia forest. This is also Ni Zan's painting of Rongxi Zhai Tu, and the name of the whole painting focus on this small pavilion, Rongxi Pavilion, which means a pavilion that can only accommodate knees. Of course, the real meaning of it is that man cannot bend their knees easily, which means that they must not lose their will. When the painter created this pavilion, he used a very simple and unsophisticated form, using a attached roof with a slight arc, which is very emotional and touching. But touching is also based on the pavilion's connection with the landscape. Going back to our pavilion, I wonder if I could use modern materials such as steel to simulate the feeling of a thatched roof or some kind of ruin-like shatteredness. A simple idea is to break down the roof into pieces to simulate some kind of sensations. We used prefabricated mechanical elements to connect each pieces of the roof that had been disassembled in the factory. This is outside looking of the pavilion. In fact, we use such a structural way to simulate the feeling of forest under the pavilion as in the woods. The outside looking and the inside. It's a structurescape of forest. This is a town center of a community called Yuniao Liusu in Hangzhou, located on the northwestern outskirts of Hangzhou. It serves an up-and-coming satellite settlement, and in the mountains in the distance, in the 5,000-year-old archaeological ruins of Liangzhu city. Archaeological ruins of Liangzhu city was discovered just in 2007 and inscribed on the World Heritage List in 2019. The Liangzhu culture is representative of China's Neolithic rice culture. And when I visited the Liangzhu Museum in 2015, I happened to find the figure of this Asian house on a piece of pottery, which looks like a steel house 500 years ago. After the appearance of this figure in 2,000 years, the Jingwen, the bronze inscriptions in the Western Zhou dynasty, appeared the character about the house, she, which is composed of 3 parts, jicaowei, which means gathering, straw, and enclosure, respectively. And its graphics represent the roof, beams and columns in the middle, pedestal, pedestals or territory respectively. And the Chinese architectural historian Lin Huiying called it the three elements of Chinese Asian architecture. The character is also the name of our firm, Deshaus, Dashe, which is almost a coincidence because in fact we first had a German name, means related to of the house, and later, according to the pronunciation, took the Chinese name Dashe, this house, Chinese name Dashe. After Dashe means the big house, I'll give respect to the house. After 15 years of getting this name, I just find where it came from. So not far from this excavated artifact, we decided to design a building with such a simple three elements composition. The roof of the house was twisted due to the environmental factors, and in order to make the facade on both sides of the building more open, we use a long structure instead of a short structure, just like a bridge, spanning the distance between the two gables in the north and the south. The timber structure would string beams with three beams, and the wooden posts formed an interesting twisting shape in the interior, like the vertical stacking of the tree trunks in the farmland. Unfortunately, the client insist on using a steel truss structure because they were worried that the timber structure of the tensioned string beams was not safe enough, and but I still decided to use the vertical array of timber beams to cover the steel truss structure, because this is the atmosphere of the interior space originally envisaged. There are only slender steel columns on both sides to guarantee an open view. The building is placed on a pedestrian about the height of a table. Once inside, the space sunk again, and people sat down to look out as if the ground is just right in front of them. This is the second story attic designed as a reading space for the children, where children can sit on the floor and have lower windows to look out. This is a photo of the building before it was opened. The building is thin, and the roof seems floating above the ground. Here are some details. Behind is a curved wall. Behind the curved wall is the staircase. From the rooftop view, the building looks just like a ship. This is a cloister on the side of the building and the porch space at the entrance. This is a courtyard in front of the restaurant and at the back. After being built, the local people call it a big barn. And I think this is the impression created by this kind of timber-made interior space, which is a metaphor of barn, a barn structurescape. One day I was surprised to realize that the front facade of this building is just the character of the word barn, 仓. The word is composed of three parts. 吉 means the roof, and 户 means just the door, and 围 means the territorial. It just means a single door. In Asian China, people say that the door usually refers to a double door, but a single door means more close, simple, so that the single door is the door for the warehouse. The last project of the presentation is the upper cloister in Golden Ridge, sits in the valley where Beijing meets Chengde. It is a meditation space designed for the Aranya community. We call it cloister at first, because in the history of Chinese temples, a Zen temple of Buddhism is a place where people introspect themselves. But today, a temple as a place of religion has gradually become a place of sightseeing and praying. How should a contemporary place for introspection in China look like? This is also our expectation towards this project. The site is to the northeast of Beijing, facing a length of the Great Wall from the Ming Dynasty. In the meantime, it also faces Beijing. The special location also reminds me of the Foguang Temple from Tang Dynasty on Wutai Mountain in Shanxi Province. As it faces valley, it is also facing the remote capital at the time, Chang'an City. This is not a coincidence, but intentional. The spatial sequence of Foguang Temple can put into three spatial types in general: the courtyard, the terrace, and the hall. The most famous part today is the east hall of a wooden structure on the terrace, but it is also impressive to see the splendid valley cross it and the rays of the light at the sunset. From the courtyard, a folded space, to a terrace, a place that gets the body to tighten up, and to the hall, a formal and purposeful space. The series of space both adapt to the sloping valley and implies the rhythm of tension and relief during the scenic experience. This is also the reason why this spatial composition is eventually introduced into the upper cloister project. This is both specific and abstract. What's different between the two is that the Foguang Temple sets the spatial sequence from bottom to top, and the cloister here puts it from top to bottom. This is determined by the arrival spot and also where the upper cloister got its name, Shangyuan upper cloister. Of course, the most important is when I saw the Great Wall, I knew I should do something as an echo of the past. This is actual nometric drawing of the project. This is an air bird view after its completion. We can clearly see its spatial composition and its relation to the terrain. The section drawing can show us more clearly the combination of these three spatial types. The terrace architecture in the middle is actually a space of artificial mountains that one can go here and there inside, and the suppressed body waits to open up to the valley when enter the thing hall. This is the entryway. We can see that the courtyard on the upper part looks very enclosed from the outside. But when we entering the courtyard, one will find it open to the sky and the mountains at far. The courtyard of stones is enclosed with a sloped roof of thin steel plate and concrete walls. The steel pillars supporting the black steel plate roof also support the concrete wall. The eaves corridor covers with steel plate is actually compressing the corridor with steel pillars onto the concrete wall, and the width of the corridor is reduced to 0 here. It becomes a pilaster corridor or a eaves corridor. The eaves corridor provides an atmosphere and a frame of landscape of the mountains and the sky. As the sun sets over the rocks at the summit, revealing why this area called Jingshanling, called Golden Ridge here. Yeah. When the sun sets, the peaks here are became golden. And in the moonlight at night, the ground of the courtyard becomes incredibly bright, and this stone resembled several small hills in the sea. I named this stone courtyard Wu Jing Yi, means infinity or immersed in. The Buddha hall next to the stone courtyard, there is a natural stone sculpture outside the window. You may see a woman like the stone. This model photos can show us the courtyard space on top and the terrace space in the middle, closely combined with the topography. In fact, every time the architectural volume drops, it drops with the height of half a level, 1.6 meters. This also blurs that the definition of the architecture and the topography, the terrain. It is somehow close in scale to the terraced fields where local farmers grow crops. The terraced space of 1.6 meters high also brings a special spatial atmosphere to the interior. It is basically the height of a human body or a person's eye level. And so the interior is suggesting the scale of sitting on the ground. Thus, one can see the mountains up high above the yard in front of the windows. The surrounding scenery and light also comes inside through the interspace of the architecture. The concrete box inside is actually the meditation room, and the courtyard in front of it. It brings a feeling as if we were in the belly of the mountains. This is a reading room and its courtyard. At the bottom is a Zen hall. It is a pavilion with a curved roof supported by slender steel columns. The metaphor of the word just said she is still used here, but more specifically, the plan composed of the east wall of Foguang Temple is adopted. That is the structure of the inner and outer two circles of columns, which is called Jingxiang Doudi Cao in Chinese ancient timber architecture. In fact, when discussing the structure of this pavilion with the structural engineer, the inner and outer circles of steel columns just provide better lateral stiffness for the slender columns. The roof is formed like a piece of stretched elastic fabric. The structure is steel belt and polymer mortar. The calculated thickness of the roof is 4.5 centimeters. This is similar to the technique of building a cement boat. Because it is a brand new structural form, to test out the construction of this structure, we made a one-to-one mock-up of it for an exhibition in the Plaza of National Olympic Games Stadium in Beijing, and turning it into an installation of an adaptable living space. This is a process of locating and constructing the steel belts, the process of applying polymer mortar. The facade of the building is made of furniture boxes that can open or close. Through opening or close the facade of the furniture, it becomes an open home in for the exhibition. These are the exhibition photos. But since the polymer mortar on the roof is applied by hand, there is quite much deviation regarding the thickness of the roof, and it adds to the weight of the roof too. When there was a strong wind, I noticed that the roof also wrecked a lot. So I had to consider the security and durability of the hall as a permanent architecture in the mountains. And due to the difficult construction conditions, to achieve an accurate construction of a curved roof may be prefabrications is a reliable way. So we changed the polymer mortar roof into one with prefabricated carbon fiber. The roof is divided into load-bearing groups of honeycomb sandwich panels. The CNC robotics can accurately process each of the honeycomb curved PU foam. It is wrapped with carbon fiber to become a sandwich structure, prefabricated in the factory and bring it to site. The carbon fiber roof plate constructed on site is coated with special painting to achieve the same texture as the steel plate roof at the top. We let it cannot be easily told what the roof is made from. But when a light snow falls, the honeycomb structure of the roof suddenly emerges due to the instantaneous temperature change and the thermal inertia of the materials inside, revealing its structurescape in a surprising way. The cliffside pavilion in China also has a specific character as a type of the building corresponding to it. It's called a yan. This is a view from within the Zen Hall towards the valley and the Great Wall. Left ID is summer and right is last week. Is in the autumn. The surrounding mountain rocks reflect on the glass, overlapping the Buddha statue and the landscape behind. It seems all the arrangement is just for this moment in the pavilion to see the view. It shows the space under the eaves of the hall, or actually this is the corridor, but when it's wide enough, it becomes pavilion. Seen from below the concrete, the stone walls, and natural cliffs, the architectural materials are the decomposition of the colors and elements of natural stones. Then the architecture merged into the topography. Traces of an old small coal mine remains in the middle of the mountain as a spatial landscape from the industrial period. On the site of this coal mine, where we have kept a mine shaft and set up a small bell pavilion. It's snowy weather. In snowy weather, the terrain and architecture gradually became abstract, especially the roof. We can recall the pavilion in the previous landscape paintings. This painting is called 青鸾消四图, which means the clear mountain with bleak temple. The architecture in the painting constructs and strengthens the presence of a kind of subject. Just like the previous name of Rong Qizhai, the painter uses paintings to express his aspirations, and Chinese landscape painting is inseparable from poetry and paintings. It's more cloudy weather here, and the name I give to this pavilion is Yun Qi Tang, means cloud rise hall. This is an ancient Chinese poem called 行到水穷处坐看云起时, which means go to the place in the end of the river, sit and watch the clouds rise, something like that. Here is a video. When it's raining here. Okay, these are some of our projects I just mentioned: art museums, working spaces, leisure space, and even retail space. Most of them begin with thinking about function and usage, but in the end, they all seem to have a tendency of defunctionalizing. This appears to be done with the help of structure. I used to call it embodied structurescape, as if you ask me how these structures embodied, the word coincidence me helps. Let's go back to the sunshade shelter. The tree umbrella at the archaeological site is still a tree, which is to say part of the landscape. Likewise, the roof remains as an artifact of textile craft. They are together, but not only unified, but they are events that have unfolded in the landscape or in the artisan workshop. This reminds me of the architecture ruins is some of the projects that I just mentioned. The ruin of architecture stand on the ground after the functions are removed. They seem to have become a part of the landscape, and the new structure attached onto them seem to be both separate and integrate with it. There are also projects that use entirely new materials, such as the thin steel plates and columns, and even carbon fiber root plate, which also imply associations with traditional architecture forms, either consciously or unconsciously, but also point to the umbrellas on the archaeological site, which are not symbolic but structural. This is probably the point of the regional construction system, which is the structurescape that emerges from the various related elements rather than a kind of style. It makes me realize that the poetic tradition is still possible, although I'm not optimistic optimistic about that, but it is still worth rethinking and exploring. Or should we still ask, in the future, what kind of basic emotions would still be alive in architecture? That's the question. Thank you. That's all of it.